On the last afternoon of the year, at the most sacred moment of reunion, when families everywhere gathered around the New Year's Eve meal, a mother quietly left her son's house. All because of a cold remark from her daughter-in-law. Mother's zodiac doesn't match ours. If you stay for the new year, it will bring bad luck. Even more painful, her own son, the child she had raised all those years, awkwardly added, "Mom, you should head back early, or you'll miss the bus." No tears, no one to see her off, only the sound of the door closing behind her frail figure in her 70s and a heartbreaking on New Year's Eve. Yet on the morning of the first day, the whole family was stunned when they opened the gift she had left behind. The daughter-in-law, the very one who had wanted her gone, collapsed in tears before the altar upon reading the few final lines she had written. This story makes anyone reflect. Family bonds are precious, but if left uncherished, they can vanish in an instant. That afternoon of Lunar New Year's Eve, fine drizzle hung over the streets of Hanoi, the gloomy sky clinging as if unwilling to let the old year go. Outside, people bustled about shopping and preparing festive meals. Yet inside the spacious home of Thang and Heen, the air was heavy, pressing down like a weight. Madame Bitch sat silently in the corner, her eyes fixed on the small peach blossom branch on the table. She had wanted to help her daughter-in-law with the cleaning and cooking, but in recent days Heen had shown constant displeasure, even avoiding letting her mother-in-law touch the altar or the kitchen. That very morning, she clearly heard her daughter-in-law whisper to her husband, "The fortune teller already said, if mother stays, our family will face misfortune all year. Please, listen to me, let her go." Thang knew those words went against the duty of a child, but after hearing his wife repeat them for days, he reluctantly stepped forward. "Mom, maybe this year you should go to Aunt Knox for Tet. There'll be lots of relatives there, it'll be livelier." Madame Bitch only smiled faintly, a smile that could break one's heart. "Yes, I was thinking the same. You're both busy, and if I stay, I'll just be in the way." Hearing this, Heen breathed a sigh of relief, believing her mother-in-law to be easygoing and not resentful. Yet once back in her room, Madame Bitch had to lean against the wall just to stop herself from collapsing. Evening fell, with only hours left until the stroke of midnight. In her small room, she quickly folded a few old clothes, the woolen scarf she had knitted the year before, and a wooden box wrapped in a silk cloth. Before leaving, she placed that box on the living room table, along with a small note, "Open this when you have time." On the last evening of the year, while Thang was busy hanging red parallel sentences and Heen bustled about cleaning and preparing the offering tray, the old woman quietly picked up her small suitcase, opened the door, and stepped out. No one saw her off, except her son who hesitantly called after her, "Mom, when you arrive, remember to call me." She nodded, slowly descending each step of the stairs. Every step felt like an added weight pressing into her heart. The bus station was just over 2 kilometers away, yet she didn't call a taxi. She wanted to walk, thinking perhaps each footstep would help her swallow some of the bitterness inside. The cold wind stung her face, her silver hair falling loose. People on the streets hurriedly carried gifts and cakes, rushing home to reunite with family. But she, a mother deemed unlucky by her daughter-in-law, silently abandoned by her own son's silence, walked away alone at year's end. The bus station was crowded with people, luggage scattered everywhere, voices calling one another in a noisy rush. Mrs. Bitch hurriedly bought a ticket for the last bus of the day, departure time 4:15. Sitting in the waiting area, the yellow light cast a weary shadow across her aged face. Beside her, someone ate a baguette, another called home to send New Year's wishes. She only sat still, clutching her suitcase, staring blankly ahead. In her head still echoed Heen's words that morning. "Master said your age clashes with Tai Tuesday, and it also conflicts with little Nam's fate. If you stay, the family might face misfortune. Please understand." She had never believed in such things. If she truly brought bad luck, how had she managed to endure more than 70 years, raising her child into adulthood? But she understood, when people no longer wish to keep you, every explanation is meaningless. The loudspeaker called for her bus home. She stood up, her bent back and heavy steps carrying her forward. Before boarding, she quietly opened her phone. Her contacts listed only a few names: Thang, son; Heen, daughter-in-law; Nam, grandson. She almost typed, "I've boarded. Thank you for giving me an unforgettable new year." But in the end, she deleted it, turned off the phone. 7 p.m. outside, loudspeakers broadcast New Year's greetings, crackling firecrackers mixed with cheerful music. Hanoi glowed bright amid the drizzle of New Year's Eve. Inside Thang and Heen's house, the feast was neatly laid out. Rose-shaped boiled chicken, green bon chung, red zoe gak, bamboo shoot soup, gio lua. Only one thing was missing, the presence of a mother. Thang hurriedly lit incense at the altar, his heart restless. In previous years, it was always his mother who carefully cleaned the incense bowl, arranged the flowers, brewed the tea. This year, only he fumbled awkwardly, eyes stinging as he stared at the flickering oil lamp. In the kitchen, Heen washed dishes, glancing at the pot of boiled chicken. Though she had cooked it herself, something still felt empty. Every year, her mother-in-law would remind her, "Don't chop the chicken while it's still hot, or you'll cut through the breast and lose the luck." Back then, she often felt annoyed at the fussiness. Now, no one reminded her, yet strangely, the silence unsettled her. At 8 p.m., the family sat watching the Dao Quan show. Little Nam laughed, then turned to ask, "Dad, why isn't Grandma eating watermelon with me this year?" Thang froze, Heen stiffened. Both forced a smile. "Grandma went back to the countryside for Tet, dear. It's more fun there, with more fireworks." Nam pouted. "But Tet isn't Tet without Grandma." That innocent line cut into their hearts like a knife. Thang stood to pour water, his eyes lingering on the wooden box his mother had left on the table, wrapped in an old purple handkerchief. A small scrap of paper stuck outside, scrawled with the words, "Open whenever you wish." He stared at it for a long time before turning away, not because he was afraid, but because he lacked the courage to face his own conscience. The night deepened. At 11 p.m., Heen set the New Year's Eve offering tray, her hands arranging each dish while her heart tangled with unease. The small bowl for rice and salt had a crack, yet she still placed it on the tray. What was missing wasn't just an object, but a person. In the past, whenever she found a cracked bowl, her mother-in-law would immediately replace it and gently remind, "Using chipped dishes at the start of the year means hardship all year long, dear." Now, no one remembers. The offering tray is still laid out in silence. Thang recited prayers, his voice flat and dry. Heen stood behind him, clutching the dish towel tightly. Nam sat cross-legged on the floor, yawning in boredom. Just then, fireworks burst outside the window, their red and gold light spilling into the room. The boy squealed with joy and rushed out to the balcony, while Thang and his wife remained motionless. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, but Heen's gaze fell on the offering tray and the empty wooden chair where Mrs. Bitch used to sit. After midnight, Heen cleared the offerings. Thang picked up his phone, wanting to call his mother, but hesitated. He feared saying an empty, hollow phrase, "Happy New Year, Mom," after he himself had let her leave in such sorrow. In the end, he turned off the phone, his heart in turmoil. Heen quietly wiped the altar. When her hand touched the wooden box her mother-in-law had left behind, she froze for a moment, tempted to open it, but then pushed the thought aside, muttering, "Probably just some old things." The box was shoved to the corner of the table, lying still, like the old woman herself, an unspoken silence from afar. Late at night, the whole house slept. Outside, only the soft drizzle fell into the yard. Thang tossed and turned, while Heen, for the first time in her marriage, found herself wondering, "I told her to leave because of superstitions about age, but why does it feel so empty inside?" Her eyes drifted toward the purple-covered box, silent yet heavy, as if demanding an answer. On New Year's morning, the spring breeze slipped through the door cracks. The first sunlight was crystal clear, yet it could not drive away the cold of absence. The house of three was utterly still. No popping firecrackers, no cheerful greetings. Only the clinking of the kettle boiling and the sound of Heen's slippers dragging across the wooden floor. She wandered around, glanced at the bright red peach blossoms, and sighed. The image of Mrs. Bitch quietly pulling her suitcase out the door kept replaying in her mind. She recalled Nam's innocent eyes asking where Grandma had gone, and the wooden box draped with purple silk. Her hands trembled as she lifted it. The fabric carried a faint, familiar scent, the fabric softener her mother-in-law always used on washcloths. Beneath it was the old wooden box, carefully kept, its brass latch clicking open softly. Inside were a notebook, a small pouch of photos, a sealed envelope, and a stack of papers stamped in red. She opened the notebook first. The familiar round handwriting of her mother-in-law appeared, entries dating from the day she moved in. "On my first day here, I felt out of place. The house is beautiful, clean, and full of modern comforts, but it lacks the smell of brewed tea, lacks the sound of the morning broom." Heen said. Mom, let me handle everything, you don't need to do a thing. I know it wasn't out of dislike, but still, I felt like a guest in my own son's home. Heen swallowed hard. She flipped through more pages and came across entries about Nam, the little boy who clung to his grandma, who climbed into her lap every night to chat. Each time he does that, my heart warms strangely. But sometimes Heen reminds me, Mom, don't spoil him too much or he'll turn naughty. I only smiled, but that night, I turned my face to the wall with tears in my eyes. Tears streamed down Heen's cheeks. She had never imagined that her mother-in-law, so quiet and reserved, had recorded every little feeling with such care. Next was the pouch of photos, from the days she cradled baby Thang, to her years working in the cooperative, to her retirement. In every picture was the same resilient, hardworking gaze. And then, that silent, sorrowful look on New Year's Eve. With trembling hands, Heen opened the sealed envelope. Inside was the land title, owner, Nguyen T. Bich. This house had belonged to her mother-in-law. Alongside it was a folded document, an unsigned deed of transfer. Tucked in was a handwritten note. I plan to transfer the house to you both after the new year. But since my daughter-in-law says I bring bad luck, perhaps I also don't belong here. I regret nothing, except that I never once heard the words, Mom, please join us for dinner. Heen broke down, collapsing onto the floor, clutching the papers, photos, and notebook as though they were her mother-in-law's very flesh and blood. She gasped for breath, the pain crushing her chest. Just then, Thang came downstairs and saw his wife sitting on the floor, her hands trembling as she clutched the documents, her face pale. Alarmed, he rushed over.